Welcome to the HuntLeague podcast, where we share hunting stories from the field that help pave the way for others to follow.
That was me coming in here saying, guys, we need to do something different, and we need to change the game when it comes to hunting knives.
This is your host, Jared Newman. Let's get started. All right, welcome to the HuntLeague podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Lucas Paugh from Hogue Hunting. Lucas, I'm super excited to have you on this podcast. This is something that we've actually been talking about for the last several weeks. I wanted to get this out really before a lot of your big game season kicks off, because we are going to dive into knives, knife selection, steel. But before we get into that, I want to dive into your story. I want you to introduce yourself to the HuntLeague community. Tell us a little about who you are.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jared. First off, just appreciate you inviting me on and having me on your podcast. Yeah, so my name's Lucas Paugh. I was born and raised in a small farm community in north central Montana. Hunting and fishing was just a lifestyle as a kid. Went to college in Butte, Montana, got my undergrad and graduate degrees there, spent a lot of time hunting in the mountains there. After I graduated college, I moved to California in 2004, where I've since been 20 years now. Surprisingly, I'm still in California.
You've survived.
Yeah, no, I've survived, and I've actually thrived, is the way I actually look at it. California gets a bad rap for a lot of things, but from a hunting standpoint, I can hunt year round in terms of all of the game that we have. I think there's 12 huntable different species, 3 species of elk, 2 different species of deer, both mule deer, blacktail, turkeys, wild pigs. So there's a plethora of game, and I am a licensed, bonded, and insured guide here in California. So I run some elk hunts every year where I get some landmark tags. I also get some guys that draw tags that I'll help hunt. I do a fair amount of deer hunts as well, and we're actually in the middle of that right now in our deer season, our A zone. And then pig hunting goes year round, and we're constantly, hunting pigs, which is great, because when we talk about knives, I don't think there's any better animal to put knives on than those really thick-hided pigs. So worked in the oil and gas industry for 20 years. Last November, had the ability to retire, which is very fortunate. And I've always been involved in the hunting industry, worked with a lot of different companies, both directly and indirectly. But now I've really got the ability to spend a lot more time kind of taking what's been more of a passion and turn it into something that I'm really passionate about. And yeah, so some of the companies I work with, obviously Hogue, we'll share more of this story. I also work with Huntin Fool, which is a kind of a license application service. I work in their adventures part of their business, where I work with outfitters and book hunts. I do a lot of their international bookings. So someone calls in and says, hey, I want to go hunt in Argentina. I want to hunt in New Zealand. I've done those hunts. I know a lot of the outfitters, so I help the customers with a lot of the outfitters to help book those hunts as a hunt advisor. I also do 1099 work with KUIU. I've been involved with them for many years. I do conservation work with them with Conservation Direct. I also do all of their trade shows. So Dallas Safari Club, Hunt Expo, I get to go to those shows, be in their booth, and as an advocate, basically helping them talk about their gear, sell their gear in the booths. I also get involved in some research and development with them. They send me products to test prior to them coming out. So just some pretty cool companies I get to work with and involved with. It's been fun. It's obviously a ride. I think we think about our time here on earth and how we go through multiple changes of life. I've been very fortunate to have a professional career, and now I'm kind of doing something that I love versus something that I need to do. So pretty blessed with that. And excited to be here today. And like I said, thanks for inviting me on.
Absolutely, man. What a cool story. So I have multiple questions just out of what you just said. So what are some of your first hunting memories? Like, when did you start hunting?
Some of the most vivid memories I have with my father were hunting in the northern plains of Montana. I mean, I have pictures. I was just going back through pictures not too long ago when I was, 4 or 5 years old with my dad hunting antelope, and we'd string this pronghorn on top of this little Honda Civic car that my dad drove, and we'd hunt at that. And we didn't have a lot of money as kids. But hunting was something where we shared time, with my father, my brother, and I. And it started, when we were like, say, 3, 4 years old. I think the first animal I ever took, I was 10 years old. I had a old traditional bow. I shot a whitetail doe with it. Kind of struck a passion personally. And since then, growing up in Montana, the ability to hunt elk and deer every year. We did that with our father, and just kind of continued to turn into something where now I'm on average probably doing 7 to 10 trips a year myself, and 2 to 3 internationally. And I'm guiding and probably being a part of well over 100 different hunts a year, using these knives, skinning out animals on well over
Wow.
100 animals a year. So yeah, it's become a lifestyle, no doubt about it. And when you think about what hunting provides, it goes beyond just the meat, the experience, meeting people, camaraderie.
What are some of your favorite hunts that you've done internationally? I mean, when the whole world is your oyster and you can look at doing any of these, I mean, what are some of your most treasured hunts that you've been able to do internationally over the last few years?
Yeah, so hunted in over 30 different countries across the globe. I've hunted in, I think, 6 of the 30 countries in Asia. Spent a lot of time South America, New Zealand, Africa. I'm heading to Mozambique in October this year. So international hunting for me is 100% about the experience. I love hunting in Asia. I've hunted in most countries in Asia, most of the stand countries, Turkey. I've been in and out of China, traveling through those different countries, trying to get to places. It's 100% about the experience. Going from the time you leave, whether it's the airport in the United States to the time you get to that airport in a foreign country, it's a journey. And the hunt is to me, the hunt is always kind of the cherry on top, but it truly is. It's the people, it's the cultures you immerse yourself in, the foods you eat, the people you meet. I when I go to these shows every year, I run into a lot of the outfitters that I've hunted with over the course of the many years, and it's just great to reconnect. They're great people, and what we bring to them is life. It's tourism. Like when you go to countries like Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, this is how people make their living, is by U.S. hunters coming to hunt their animals and their species. They get paid, they get tip money, we give them different items. That's how they survive. So probably some of my most memorable experiences are in Asia. It's always kind of a crapshoot. Every time you go, you're going to have something happen that's different. You just really have to be able to go with the flow. Hunted in Mongolia. I've hunted in, let's say, a lot of the stand countries. Hunted a lot of ibex in those different countries, and it's hard to beat that mountain hunt experience and what you get for the value in an ibex hunt. People call me from Huntin Fool and say, "Hey, I want to go on an ibex hunt." I said, "It's a great alternative to sheep hunting. It's about a quarter of the price, and you'll get the exact same experience or better." So I really thoroughly enjoy the international experience. Being from Montana, I love hunting the West. That's a huge passion as well. But there's nothing like getting prepared to go on a 10-day trip in the middle of nowhere in a country where like I said, I hunted in Kyrgyzstan during COVID. I hunted in Turkey when Ukraine got invaded by Russia at the same time. And I always tell people I feel more threatened in downtown Oakland than I do actually being in those countries. So it's safe, and if you do it the right way and use the right outfitters, it's very safe. So yeah, it's something I'd recommend. If you've never done it, definitely consider doing a trip somewhere outside of the North America.
I love hearing other people's stories. I mean, part of the reason why we built the HuntLeague app was to be able to capture the story of these hunts, to be able to share these kind of stories. It's once I start hearing the stories of an ibex hunt or those types of things that it starts to like really pique my interest. I'm like, I've never even considered that.
Yeah.
That might be something down the road that we put a bucket list hunt together with a couple guys and go do something like that. So just those little tidbits, those are inspiring to me. I love hearing it. Now, I'm super jealous because we are right at the precipice of jumping into September. September is my favorite time of year. There's nowhere in the world I'd rather be than Colorado, September, chasing elk with a bow in hand. My calendar year seems to revolve around. I just can't wait for that. It can't come soon enough. But I'm jealous of you because you've already gotten out and you've already harvested an elk, at least one this season. So when did you do that? How early does your season open? Was that with a bow or rifle? How did that all go down? And that was one of your guided hunts, is that correct?
Yeah. So one of the joys of, I guess, living in California, if that's even a cliche, if you will, is our hunting season. So our blacktail archery season opens the second week of July for archery. So we're hunting velvet bucks in July here in Central California where I live. Analogous to that, our elk season from our private land management hunts start also July 1st. And then a lot of the draw tags, depending on Thule, Roosevelt, or Rocky, which is one thing cool about California. All three species of elk are in California, and Thule are the only species in California that you can hunt in California. So if guys are coming for their North American 29, they've got to come through California to kill a Thule. So the first hunt that we did, I was part of a friend of mine. He's been a long term friend. We killed a giant bull. It's now number 2 Boone and Crockett, but was number 1 in the world. He killed a absolute giant on the opening day. It was 368-inch Thule, 8x8, just
Oh
an
my
absolute.
gosh.
A friend of mine I met actually 2 years ago. I was traveling to Mongolia for an ibex hunt. He was traveling to Tajikistan for Marco Polo. We met at the airport. We had the same flight together. We flew to Turkey, Istanbul, and then we spread there and got his information. He goes, I'm max points. I'm trying my elk tag. And I said, hey, there's a great archery hunt here. I would highly recommend. I can take you. I know the area well. Well, he drew the tag this year, and that hunt runs end of July into early August. That's our peak of the rut here. So when I'm telling people I'm elk hunting and I'm sending videos of bulls absolutely screaming and fighting in the end of July, people are like, "Where the heck are you?" But so yeah, we hunted 6 days. We hunted hard. We killed a nice 6x6. Wasn't technically the target bull we were after, but that bull walked 40 yards in front of him. It was an archery hunt, and after day 6, I think he was ready to let an arrow release, and yeah, let the air out of that bull at 40 yards. It dropped right in front of us, and it was super cool experience. Super happy for him. It's a once in a lifetime hunt. You're never going to draw that tag again in your life unless you
Yeah.
spend the money to buy a tag. So he was super happy, and yeah, we had an absolute great hunt, and it's fun. I've got a premium elk tag this fall in September in Montana. I drew with 23 points, so I just basically take everything from July and roll it right to September, and I've already been hunting for 2.5 months until I even get in the woods in the West. So it's pretty cool to be able to really extend my elk season every year.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Starting that early in July, doing blacktail, doing elk, being in the rut in August and July, like hearing them bugle. I'm definitely jealous. I am yet to hear my first bugle of the season, but I'm sure it's going to come any day. I did let some of
Yeah.
our HuntLeague users know that we were going to be doing this interview, and I said, hey, if you guys got a question, for Lucas, whether it's a knife question, anything else, they kind of looked you up a little bit. Well, one of the questions came from a guy that was a part of our Sweet September League last year, which is the league that Hogue Hunting is a part of. You guys are participating as one of the league sponsors with one of your knives. Here's the question. It says, what are your thoughts on how most YouTube influencers use location bugles almost exclusively to hunt elk? I've only found that to be useful when elk are already talking and in the early part of the season, relying more on finding fresh sign and then making subtle bedding and raking sounds. Sometimes not even cow calls. So he's just saying a little bit of movement, little something that kind of piques curiosity might bring him in. I've had much more luck bringing in bulls that way than with bugles or even cow calls. Almost seems like it's overhyped in order to sell calls and the experience to me. Or is it due to the pressure that you have on public land or bull to cow ratios? So there's a lot of stuff that he just said in there. I don't know how you want to approach that or answer it, but I think the biggest part of that is the bugle thing and the calling thing overhyped when you're hunting elk. So you've done this as a guide. You've hunted elk for quite a few years. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, no, I great question, and I will say I definitely have an opinion on it. hunting elk as a kid, turning into an archery hunter, archery hunting elk, and then obviously, guiding elk. There, it's really different evolutions of being an elk hunter. If I had one animal to hunt the rest of my life, it would be elk. There's no question. I love mule deer. I love North America, but elk hunting is definitely something that just every year, it's something that I look forward to every year. Um, on that subject about calling and what people see, I do want to talk a little bit about what people see on social media and YouTube. Some of that stuff is really instructional. It's good. You can go online, you can learn a lot of stuff, but then there's a lot of stuff on there that people do that in my opinion is why I would say to some extent, public land hunting is not probably as good as it is now, or maybe it was. One, giving locations away, talking about strategies and tactics, which are good. I tend to be a little more tight chested with some of that stuff because there's things I've used that I feel have worked over the years that I try to continue to employ, whether I'm guiding or whether I'm hunting myself. But I think there's a time and a place for everything. Do I have a bugle in my pack when I elk hunt? Yes. Do I use it? Rarely ever. Do I have open recalls and diaphragms in my pack? Yes. Do I use them? Only to stop elk before I take a shot. So I like to hunt elk, spot and stalk elk, where during the rut, they're telling you where they're at. Okay. A lot of times early in the morning, you hear an elk bugle or you get close enough to when you hear the cows are talking. There's no reason to have to sit there and call to the elk. They're telling you where they are, right? My strategy is I like to get close. I like to get into 100 yards and I like to set up in an area where I can try to get an opportunity for that elk to slip up. Okay. Now, fast forward that. If it's super quiet, you're hunting public land, you get up in the morning, you don't hear anything, you're grinding canyons. Is it sometimes okay to throw out a bugle to see if something locates? Absolutely. And have I done that? Yes, but I don't do that a lot of times because I just personally don't like giving away my location. So if I know there's smoke in an area and he's talking, there's no reason for me to have to talk to him. Now, if I get in on that group and I can't break that bull free, and I'm checking his temperature and he's rutting the cows, he's moving hard, right, and he's glunking and doing all the things that elk do. And if I show up maybe as a bull and do some cow calling with a challenge bugle, sometimes that works, right? This last scenario that I had with my hunter here last month, we had a bull that had about 50 cows, and we were trying to kill that bull. And we were in that 100-yard bubble and just could not get him to slip up. Well, the bull we ended up shooting was about 700 yards to the east of us. And I just started light cow calling, and he immediately hit back to me and bugled. And I knew immediately when I did that he was hot. So he came running at us from 700 yards. And the next time I cow called him was to stop him at 40 yards, and we shot him. So it can be effective. And like I said, I'm not one to say that one technique is different than others because you've got guys out there that all they do is bugle and they kill elk, right? But they also elk know where they are. I think sometimes you can blow out canyons doing that. And on public land, there's just so many limited opportunities to have those encounters. For me, it's been more effective to let them make the mistake versus me being the one vocalizing to them to do that. But once again, talk to Corey Jacobson, talk to guys that have killed on elk, and their strategy and technique is totally different. And I appreciate that because everything we do, at the end of the day, it's about what's effective and works for us. Like I said, I've just found that being more stealthy and quiet and getting in tight on that group, I've just had better luck killing a lot of bulls that I have doing it from that technique. So I don't know if that answers a question or if I missed anything, but that would be kind of my synopsis of calling versus non-calling and what's effective and not effective.
I think that's so good. Like, I'm reminded over and over again of different scenarios over the last 20 years where I have made calls and thinking like, okay, I think that elk is still another 400 yards away, and they were hard charging, and then I blow a call only to look up and see they were right there at the edge of timber. They were on their way to me, and I blew it because I just gave them my location. I mean, I think back to my first actual encounter with an elk. I mean, after trying to hunt elk for my first 2 years, I mean, I hiked miles and miles and miles and never saw a single animal. I was like, this is crazy, but I got addicted somehow. That third year, had a bull, and we were just coming in, and I was talking to a buddy, and I was like, hey, let's mark this spot. There's a little wallow in a really secluded, kind of heavy timber area. And I was like, let's mark this spot, and come back and hunt this. And as we're talking and doing that, I look up, and still to this day, it's one of the biggest bulls I would have ever had the opportunity on. I mean, probably a mid 300s bull is coming in, and he's at 40 yards coming into this little pocket meadow in the middle of like deadfall. And I look over to him and I grab him. I'm like, chill, we got a bull coming. And so I start trying to knock my, I knock my arrow, and then I'm trying to clip in, and my adrenaline is pumping so hard. I'm like shaking, trying to get my caliper on. And I'm like, after that, I had to switch to a hook style release because I was like, I couldn't even hook in on that first encounter. But then right as it's like the moment of truth, like he's just coming in and he doesn't know where we are. And we would have had 20 minutes to sit and watch this bull hang out and probably wallow around. And it'd have been a 20-yard, 15-yard shot, no problem. Even where he was at 40, it wouldn't have been a problem. Well, as I'm still trying to fiddle and get clipped in, he does like 3 cow calls right next to me. And the bull just kind of picks his head up and stares right at us. And there's just nothing we can do. Like, it's like the bull's expecting to see a cow. The bull ends up swirling and taking off, crashing through the woods. And I turned and I was like, why'd you call? Like, we didn't need to call him in. He was right here. And he was like, I just got so excited. I just felt like I had to do something. And I think so many people watch videos and watch stuff, and then they get an elk in proximity. And rather than just doing what you said, like play the stealth, wait for the elk to make a mistake, we feel like we need to force something. And when we do that, it's like what we're really doing is forcing that bull to run the other way. Because it's like, well, you should be, I know where you are. You're not a cow. You're not, they can wind you. They're going to circle. They're going to use their nose. They're going to use their eyes. They're going to come in more cautiously. So I think what you said has a lot of wisdom.
To your point, elk are always going to put the wind at their nose when they come in, right? But there's a lot of times bulls will come in silent. I'll hear them bugle and they're like, okay, that's pretty close. You'll get set up. Next thing you know, you haven't heard them in 10 minutes, and that thing's standing at 40 yards. And I don't know how a 600-700 pound animal can be so silent in the forest like they can, but they do. And I'm not an expert in elk hunting. I've done a lot of elk hunting. I've elk hunted for probably 30 years of my life, and I've always spent September in the woods chasing them with a bow. And like I said, there's not a perfect recipe. I say it's very circumstantial because every situation is different. You get a bull by himself versus a bull with a bunch of cows. That whole strategy can change. So that's what makes it fun is trying to really keen in and understand elk behavior and what they do in September. And so yeah, it's by far the top of the pyramid for me when it comes to hunting.
You and I at least share that in common, where it's like, man, if you could hunt one thing year over year, and I hear some people like, no, my one thing would be going to Africa and, hunting kudu or hunting something like that, or doing a sheep hunt. And you've gotten to do some of those exotic hunts, but I love that the elk thing is deep in your blood and just like, man, if I could hunt one species the rest of my life, there's just not another animal that does it to me that sits there and screams like some prehistoric dragon. I'm like, it's such an out-of-body wild experience. So, all right, we're going to push pause in this conversation and continue it in part 2, where we dive into Hogue Hunting knives. It's not every day that you get to hear from a guy with this level of experience. Every time I talk to Lucas, you can hear his passion. He absolutely loves what he does. He's a constant student of the game. And with elk season starting to open up in the West, I wanted to introduce the HuntLeague community to Lucas and Hogue Hunting. If you have not looked at Hogue's new lineup of knives, go to HugueHunting.com and check them out. Hogue recently joined the Sweet September League inside the HuntLeague app, where one archery elk hunter is going to win the title and a killer prize package that includes a custom Hogue Hunting knife. If you're not familiar with the HuntLeague mobile app, it works as a digital hunting journal in the field, capturing timestamps, GPS coordinates, pictures, video, audio notes for dozens of species. Add events like sightings, sign, call sequences, shots fired, or use the blood tracking tool that will help you follow the blood trail and recover more game. Log everything that goes into your season, from training days to every hunt, scout, and pack out. The app is designed to capture the story of the hunt. Rank up with every activity you log on the HuntLeague leaderboard. Compete in leagues like the Outdoorsman of the Year, the Apex Predator, Spring Turkey, and the Sweet September Archery Elk League. If you plan to bow hunt for elk this year, I want to invite you to join us in the Sweet September League. Share your story filled with the ups and downs, and at the end of the season, one hunter will win the Sweet September title along with a great little prize package from our friends at Spot Hog, Hogue Hunting, and others. You are really going to want to stay tuned for part 2 with Lucas Paugh as he pours years of experience into developing one of the best hunting knives ever made. Seriously, you're going to love what they've developed at Hogue Hunting. These knives instantly caught my eye at SHOT Show. I knew right away that whoever designed them really knew what they were doing. They are perfect for the backcountry ounce counting hunter. Whether you're looking for a fixed blade or a replaceable blade system, the winner of the Sweet September League, they're going to win a custom Hogue hunting knife built just for you. The hardest decision that you're going to have to face is whether to keep it as a trophy knife or actually use it in the field. Either way, you're going to love the knife. But do you have what it takes to win one of these is the real question. Download the HuntLeague app today, and we will see you inside the league.